Lamar Jackson working with an offensive-minded head coach has a lot of Ravens fans excited, but unfortunately the prospects of that just took a major blow.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now the #1 sports podcast network. Appreciate everybody for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage for you. And thanks so much to all the everydayers, first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. On today's show, we're going to have former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver and Super Bowl champion Qadry Ismail of Missile Training, MissileTraining.com, and the Locked On Ravens Squad show. Join us. We're going to be talking about the Ravens putting their foot down in their coaching search. We're going to be talking about John Harbaugh breaking his silence as the new head coach of the Giants, talking about Lamar Jackson, a lot of other things, and also just general Ravens updates. But before we get to our talk with Q, there was news that broke after Q and I recorded this episode about Mike McDaniel, and unfortunately, he does not look like he will be coming to Baltimore as a head coach or as an offensive coordinator. So we'll be talking about that in the first little bit here before we get into the interview with Q. But yeah, it's definitely a tough blow here, as it was reported by multiple reporters last night, Adam Schefter, Tom Pelissero, Jeff Darlington, etc., that Mike McDaniel is planning to go to Los Angeles. The Chargers are planning to hire Mike McDaniel as their offensive coordinator. Now, Tom Pelissero said something a little interesting, where he said McDaniel is still a candidate for the Ravens and Raiders head coaching jobs, but if McDaniel's an offensive coordinator in 2026, it's expected to be in LA. So I don't know if I've seen something phrased like this before, where it's like, yeah, this guy is probably going here, but he's still in contention. So I mean, look, definitely a crushing blow for those who wanted McDaniel. I thought McDaniel would have been perfect with Lamar Jackson. And again, I was more open to him being a head coach than some. I know that, but I think as an offensive coordinator, a lot of people, with the way that Mike McDaniel is as an offensive mind and a genius, him working with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, at least as an offensive coordinator, I know definitely appealed to a lot of people, myself included. So, if a defensive-minded coach came in, I think that was the top offensive coordinator choice for a lot of Ravens fans, whether it was Jesse Minter or, Brian Flores, Saleh, who went to Tennessee, et cetera, Chris Shula. So the fact that McDaniel is now apparently heading to Los Angeles, I guess it's not official at the time I'm recording this, so maybe, I guess there's a little bit of a chance that things turn on their head and McDaniel comes to Baltimore in some way, shape, or form. But candidates are going off the board here. Obviously you don't want to wait too long, but if you have your guy and you're willing to wait for that guy, then okay. I would rather them take their time and be sure about their guy, as opposed to kind of rush it and be like, oh, okay, we're kind of sure, but not. That's what happened with Earl Thomas. And we all know how that worked out with Earl Thomas. So I think Baltimore, they're in a fine spot. I'm not panicking, but definitely a tough blow to lose is the wrong word because they never had him, but to lose the opportunity to get Mike McDaniel on their staff. But let's talk with Q now. Qadry Ismail, former Ravens receiver, about everything that's going on with the Baltimore Ravens. Q, this head coaching search is beginning to feel a little bit real with these second interviews coming down the pipeline. We talked about Anthony Weaver on the Squad show, but a couple of other names factoring in now, and even a couple surprise candidates getting interviews. So the second stage is going on. The first stage is still going on. It's a whirlwind right now.
It's crazy because I think with the now reported Robert Saleh trying to move himself into the Titans head coaching position, obviously whatever the Ravens and Raven fan base thought that he possibly would be with the team, I think that has safely say ship has sailed. You got, obviously McDermott, he is looking to help himself and get a coaching gig. And what does that coaching gig look like? I know that, Cleveland really has been high on him. So, yeah, there's a lot of back and forth with some of these top coaches jockeying for position and recognizing that there at one point in time were 10 NFL teams looking for head coaches. So those vacancies, some of them are being filled up. Stefanski, Harbaugh with the Falcons, obviously with the Giants, respectively. And yet there's still others out there. So leave no stone unturned. I get it from the Ravens' perspective, but yeah, we best make a decision sooner rather than later, and not a rush decision. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, you also know that you've been looking, and in that you've been looking phase and stage. Okay, what are you seeing? So Sean McDermott, he might be swooped up and might be the next coach for the Browns, which I think would be a great idea for them, sort of. But we got to face them twice a year. We'll see. We'll see how that unfolds. And the bigger picture is, yeah, there is no news like good news, and the good news is that at least the Ravens are making some cool decisions with some of the coaches that have come through that door.
Yeah, and we'll get to that now. I'll also talk about some good news in a different way a little bit later on in the show. But as I'm sure you're alluding to, Q, Mike Garafolo put out a report on Tuesday night that said that, quote, Ravens special teams coordinator Chris Horton is among a handful of coaches the team has blocked for a lateral move. Sources say his assistants, Anthony Levine Sr. and senior special teams coach Randy Brown might also be retained pending the new head coach hire. I guess his assistant, Anthony Levine. Randy Brown, obviously. Randy Brown is the special teams guru over there at the Castle. But this is interesting because obviously, Q, we know there aren't usually a lot of holdovers from previous staffs, but that doesn't mean there aren't any holdovers. And I'm not shocked that some names are being put on that list by the Ravens. The special teams unit for Baltimore has been an interesting topic of conversation. I thought that they were pretty underwhelming last year. I thought that this year they got better, but there was still some room for improvement. Obviously, look, Randy Brown has helped develop Jordan Stout. He worked with Justin Tucker for all those years, and, he has a long history. Hopefully he can help tie the loop if he's the kicker next year, assuming he is. I think, my prediction is they're going to bring competition, but he will be. That's a whole different conversation, though. How do you feel about this report in the news that Baltimore is blocking some coaches from lateral? It's not like they're getting promotions. Again, you can't, that's not something you do. I'm not necessarily shocked by this news, if I'm being honest with you.
The blocking of coaches tells me that the structure that you're going to implement is one of, hey, we want you as our head coach, but we're going to also pick, your staff. And that's not necessarily an unusual thing. It's just, I tend to think that you work better when you know who you're getting and they know what the expectations are as the head coach. So that's not an uncommon thing. I think from a Randy Brown perspective, I guess I could see the blocking of it all, because you definitely want to keep that continuity of your punter, your long snapper, and obviously your punter / holder / the guy that's kicking the field goals in Tyler Loop. Obviously, they've all three worked together, and you got a Randy Brown who has worked with Justin Tucker, who, his record speaks for itself. So not unusual. I would say, yeah, a little bit of frustration with Anthony Levine. Give me a chance to grow up and go out on my own. But if you're going to keep me, man, you better do something title-wise and also in the pocket. Because that's something where easily he could have, moved on and went with John Harbaugh and his staff. And I could easily see him fitting in New York and doing quite well. So, again, not unusual, but, it's like it speaks of, disappointment-ish type of a thing. That's how I kind of look at it.
Yeah, and that's a really good point about Anthony Levine, and again, in the report, it didn't explicitly say that Levine was getting blocked, so we don't know if he's getting interviews or not, but, I'd assume that if he is getting interviews for maybe that lateral move and they are blocking him, you're right, that's like you would want him to get a bigger role with the team, and because he wants to go out there. This is not like Horton, who's established. Randy Brown is established. Anthony Levine is not. So I wholeheartedly agree with you there. But right now the report is that Horton was named by name, and then it was a handful of other coaches. But with the other guys, Levine Sr. and Randy Brown, we'll see if they're retained as well, because Garofalo notes that they could be. Now, there was also another interesting note from Garofalo on the Insiders, which just came out as we're recording this a couple of minutes ago, that sometimes John Harbaugh got players he wanted with the Ravens, and sometimes he didn't. And apparently he pushed hard for Puka Nacua in the draft process, which imagine Puka on this team and the receiver that he is. That'd be sad. That'd be something crazy. And apparently in New York, despite securing final say with the Giants, that still could be how it works in his new gig. I mean, that just kind of feels, again, I don't know how it worked. We know that John Harbaugh reported to Steve Bisciotti and the whole ownership thing where, yeah, I mean, isn't this just kind of natural cue where, like, the coach has say on guys and he'll push hard for players, and sometimes like the team will side there and other times they won't? Or is this bigger news than it seems to me?
No. This is that news right there with him saying he was pushing for Puka Nacua kind of is interesting and surprising. And my thing is this. Eric DaCosta has these guys that love the whole metrics and all that. But when the metrics and the real tape line up with one another, but I'm curious as to where was Puka Nacua and who did Ravens wind up drafting in
I'll
that
actually look that
spot?
up. The report, Mike Garofalo said he said, quote, if he got his way, Puka Nacua would be a Raven. And actually I can look that up. So continue your point, and then when
Okay,
you
thank you.
finish,
Yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah,
let
yeah.
you know.
So that being said, the whole idea of making sure you get the right guy, right fit for, the job. And I think for Eric, there's been those misses that, obviously Steve Bisciotti was saying, well, there's, he's batting 800 and I'm not looking at the misses of the 200, but I'm like, well, offensive line wise, you didn't really bring anybody in free agency um, to kind of establish things or competition at least. You clearly weren't very high on Daniel Fa'alele coming into the year because what did you do? You had him play him and Voorhees throughout the entire preseason. If you're doing that, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, there's one thing to get reps, but then there's another thing when you're like, yeah, these guys, where's the competition, or what are we trying to warm up for? We should already be warmed and ready to go. So I don't know. I'm wondering, because of the way different teams have not only taken different coaches, but you also had teams taking different front office guys. And so I wonder if that watered down the talent evaluation, and that's where you had misses like not getting Puka Nacua on your squad.
Puka was drafted at 177 in the 5th round. It was the final pick in the 5th round, a compensatory pick. Compensatory picks can work sometimes, all right? I'm just saying, he was a comp pick.
But who?
Okay. So the player that Baltimore picked before, they picked at 157. Puka was 177, so 20 picks earlier. Caillou Blue Kelly was the selection.
Don't give me all that compensatory pick work if you gonna get Caillou Blue Kelly. What are we talking about? He ain't even on the squad.
No, he's not. He didn't even make the squad. He was cut as a rookie.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, he's with somebody else.
He's with the Raiders.
Playing
Yeah.
well. He actually played well. What are we doing?
It is crazy. And you can add him to the almost Raven list that now spans many different players, apparently, off this report, which is interesting that Puka was singled out, because Mike Garofalo also said that, Harbaugh wanted Puka to be a Raven, and Harbaugh badly wanted the Ravens to draft him, but there are other guys that Harbaugh did want that they did draft, and They didn't work out. Going to be a big topic of conversation this offseason, going after big free agents or trades or making that right draft pick because the Ravens have a lot of needs they're going to have to address. So kind of an interesting report there from Mike Garafolo that, again, just kind of dropped in the last couple of minutes as we were recording here. But coming up in the second part of the show, John Harbaugh broke his silence a little bit. And actually, we can have a different conversation about the Ravens blocking coaches. Does that have something to do with John Harbaugh? So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty coming up on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by DripDrop. Kicking off the year feeling good is the goal, right? And honestly, hydration is the easiest win. When I stay on top of it, my energy, focus, and mood all level up. Let's be real, plain water doesn't always cut it, especially when you're grinding through long days, hitting the gym, or just trying to stay consistent with your health goals. That's where DripDrop comes in. Doctor-developed, proven, fast hydration that helps your body and mind work better, think clearer, focus, better energy, elevated mood, even that fresh skin glow. I've been using DripDrop as part of my daily routine, and it's honestly a game changer. Not just for workouts, but every single day. I love that it uses a precise ratio of electrolytes and glucose for rapid absorption, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading sports drinks. And it tastes amazing. I'm obsessed with the lemon flavor. There are 16 original flavors and 8 zero sugar options to choose from. Right now, DripDrop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to DripDrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's DripDrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 20% off. Stock up now at DripDrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. Back here, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with Kadri Ismail, breaking down Baltimore Ravens football. We got 5 days a week plus more daily Ravens coverage for the regular shows Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time. We also have a bunch of other content for you, bonus episodes on the weekend when there are headlines. We got instant reactions after pieces of breaking news, as well as after games during the year. We have watch-alongs during the season, and the Locked On Ravens Squad show twice a week. It is Q&I along with Sam and Joku. We'll have that tonight. We're Mondays and Wednesdays, so we'll have that tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time for you as well. And the Everydayer Club, if you want some extra add-on content, be sure you go to the link in the description below, as well as on the Locked On website. You can go to the Locked On Ravens page and find out more there. Going back to the blocking coaches thing, John Harbaugh, everybody's kind of assuming here that he is going to bring some coaches over. There have been a lot of reports about Todd Monken and if he will be Baltimore's offensive coordinator. There have been the Giants, not Baltimore's, the Giants offensive coordinator. But even rumblings about Zach Orr. Would he follow John Harbaugh and be the defensive coordinator over there? That's an interesting conversation. Do you feel like the Ravens blocking these coaches for lateral moves? Do you think that maybe John Harbaugh was maybe getting ready to inquire, or maybe already has inquired about, hey, Chris, you want to come on over to New York and be my special teams coordinator? Or Anthony, you want to come and we'll give you a spot? Or maybe he was trying to get Randy Brown over there. Like, do you think that factored in to Baltimore's decision to block Horton and a handful of other candidates from taking those moves?
1,000%. I mean, again, it is what goes on in the NFL. It's a relationship business. In other words, I know you on your staff. You'll see it in pregame warm-up where, the coaches and the players are going out early. Then there's coaches that go out even earlier. They'll kind of sit there and they'll have their handshakes and they'll dap each other up. You'll see it even after games where I find it interesting because some coaches go right up to the head coaches and they'll be shaking hands, talking with them and everything. The assistant coaches kind of holler at one another. It's just how you do it because the Senior Bowl is really a job fair for coaches to find opportunity for employment. It happens all the time. All the networking that goes on at the Senior Bowl week is not necessarily about watching players. It's about trying to find your next job and making sure that you when the music ends, you have a chair, period. And if it happens with players, you best believe it happens with coaches. So the blocking of guys and everything, it's all about, well, John is going to be pilfering our staff. No, let's not. And so there's a little gamesmanship as well. There's gamesmanship when Anthony Weaver left, when Mentor left, when Denard left. All those coaches left when Mike McDaniel left. And so there were opportunities for guys to jump on and get a job, but John blocked them. That just is how it is done. Although you want to get in the right spot, sometimes being blocked is a good thing if you can get blocked and your team is more successful than the coach going. So if for example, if you went to the Jets, you're probably like, oh God, what did I do? Or you could be like, man, I got a chance to jump on Mike Vrabel's squad. Now you sitting there like, all right, bet, here we are. It's a matter of perspective. Heck, I'm sure Sean McDermott, like you're thinking, shoot, let's see, he has a franchise quarterback, and Sean has made the playoffs. You know what? I think this might be an opportunity for me to do what I need to do and get on his team. Oh boy, we're there. Divisional round playoffs. Oh boy, this is going to be a game where, oh man, we just take care of football. We're gonna win. Oh man. Well, at least next year. Oh, what? He's fired. Mother of pearl. So it can happen in an instant, even when you're clearly in this day and age on a team that has been well established.
Harbaugh did have his introductory press conference on Tuesday with the Giants and did a couple media interviews and broke his silence on some stuff. During his initial press conference, he thanked Baltimore. He said, quote, "To the Ravens, I'd like to extend a profound thank you to Steve and Ozzie for the opportunity, to all the players and coaches who have been unrelenting brothers through the years. We did great things. Thanks, guys." He also then went on to talk about Lamar Jackson because he was asked about Lamar and his relationship at the end. And he said, quote, "Phenomenal. We love each other. We tell each other we love each other. He's one of my favorite human beings. We revolutionized offensive football with Lamar Jackson." And then he said, "Why don't people talk about that instead of all this other stuff that's going on here?" Then Harbaugh also talked a little bit about if he had, any regrets about how he managed his final drive as head coach earlier in the month with Pittsburgh. And he said, quote, "Oh yeah, every single time you do something, if it doesn't work, I wish I would have done the other thing. So yeah, hands it off and see if Derrick Henry can go score. You can always look back and have regrets. I wouldn't really say regrets. You put everything you have into it. You shouldn't really have regrets. Disappointment, absolutely." Also talked about Q, which I thought was really interesting. You might know Rex Ryan. There's potential that Rex Ryan joins John Harbaugh's staff. And this comes after he confirmed that he's talking to Ravens coaches. Now, obviously, that means current, but maybe a former Ravens coach. And now you have even insiders saying, like Gary Myers, who covers the Giants, saying, "I know this might sound crazy, but don't discount Rex Ryan being considered to be John Harbaugh's defensive coordinator." So he also talked about on WFAN, said no one calls a better game than Rex Ryan, and noted that he speaks with Ryan regularly, would have to give him a call, see if he'd be open to return to coaching. And if Rex Ryan was hired as this team's defensive coordinator, I don't know how this fan base will react. But what's your overall take from what John Harbaugh had to say? Is there anything that stuck out to you from a Ravens perspective, or is this just John has moved on and the Ravens are too?
Yeah, I mean, John has moved on. Ravens have too, but it's interesting because the one thing you mentioned in there as you were reading it, he mentioned Ozzie and Steve, but he didn't mention Eric. That's interesting. And the whole Puka Nacua thing, that's interesting too. That's a shot across the bow. Let's just be real with it. Shot across the bow. If I'm mentioning Eric or Ozzie, and Steve and not Eric. Yeah. Now see you got me all intrigued. Now
Well,
the
I'll give you
conspiracy theorists are out.
I'll give you a couple theories. One is that he said the opportunity, and so obviously Eric didn't hire Harbaugh. It was Ozzie and Steve. That's one. That's one. Another one is that since John and Eric are so close, maybe they had a private conversation, kind of like what Lamar said in an Instagram response. Maybe that's another one. I'm just saying, do either of those explain it, or do you're still you're thinking a little bit?
Boy, if we were on X, I would be throwing up some really fun emojis right now and some memes. Man, no, come on. This dude knows that Eric was integral part, him and Eric and all that. He would have mentioned that. No, he ain't mentioned them for a reason. There's something there that we just got to get to the bottom.
I think Steve was very open, but there was probably some other stuff about how everything went down that we'll probably never know. So it is definitely intriguing. Coming up, though, in the final part of the show, we'd have into some Ravens updates. Baltimore did get good news pertaining to one coaching candidate, as well as some more second interviews potentially coming down the pipeline for Baltimore. So stay tuned. Plenty coming up on the show. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel used to get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. The boosts give you more juice on the bets you already like instead of forcing you to bet something new. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. You make your picks and apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. And the show is brought to you by Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates to truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posted on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. If I needed to hire someone for this show, I'd go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need. Real experience, not just a resume buzzword. Instead of struggling to get your job posted, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Continuing on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Kadri Ismail still rocking out with you here on this Wednesday edition of the show. Thanks so much for being here and making us a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. The Minter angle is interesting. We heard word late on Monday night, early Tuesday morning, that Joe Brady was getting a second interview. Obviously, we talked about on the squad show, Anthony Weaver was getting a second interview. That happened on Tuesday. But Jesse Minter is a name that's been linked to Baltimore. Obviously, he coached in Baltimore. It's familiar for the team. Defensive guy, getting back to that style of defense. Obviously, went to Michigan under Jim Harbaugh, then followed him to Los Angeles. He's a young coach. I mean, he's never been a head coach before. He does have play calling experience, but it feels like that's a name that just hasn't ever gone away in the Ravens head coaching search, and feels like it's been a consistent over the course of the last couple of weeks. Even before John Harbaugh was fired, people were saying, oh, what about that Jesse Minter guy? He could be a possible replacement.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, Mentor can. I think he can. I think there's, some, oh gosh, Chargers. Adafe Elway was just stuck in the mud in neutral here. They unleash him in Los Angeles. The way in which their defensive front was able to get after the quarterback, in particular Drake May, his mindset of trying to make a big play and it not being there, well, that was more scheme than anything. And I think that is something where, yes, Jesse could be that guy that would elevate this defense and this team's mindset. And then you bring in a McDaniel and then you just roll through the AFC North, what up, say something, and then all of a sudden you face off in the playoffs with whomever, and it doesn't matter because you got Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and an offensive line that finally looks like an offensive line that can actually play because we're not sitting there playing roly poly oly and everybody's like, oh, it's okay, he'll be okay. No, he's not okay. We ain't having it. So the accountability factor I think with Minter would be a good one. Um, although I still like Weaver.
Yeah, look, Weaver to me is a fine candidate. You know, I know that some people in the fan base love him, others don't. But I'm kind of in the middle. I'm like, I'm for sure able to be talking to Weaver. Definitely, Minter is another guy that, like, yeah, that's a guy I'd definitely be fired up about. Now, one guy I would not be fired up about, Q, is Darren Rizzi, is Mike Kliss over at 9 News in Denver, Broncos special teams coordinator. He apparently is expected to get a head coaching interview with the Ravens. And I am not on board with that one. I don't think the Ravens need to be going down that route. Maybe this is more for intel on certain things. I'm not sure. Maybe it's more to get information on Davis Webb, but that report actually coming out on Monday evening. But I don't really have any idea why they would interview Darren Rizzi for the head coaching opportunity, but that's what is being reported out of Denver. I mean, do you have any idea why they do that? Even if it's not expected to, I don't know if it's expected or not to go anywhere, but kind of feels like a weird interview is the second interview is already getting started.
I can only think we want John Harbaugh 2.0. Who knows? Like he did something that was unique and they just thought, hey, why don't we just look into him being our coach? I don't know. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, huh, why? I don't know. I really don't. And then
Yeah.
I'm curious as to their processing, even in the interviewing. Like, what I'm curious. Are they talking strategy, or are they just talking generic terms? But are they talking strategy to keep that intel to then use later? You know, like I don't know. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that room.
Yeah, I mean, we know that he took over for Dennis Allen in New Orleans after he was fired and finished 3-5 as the Saints interim coach. So, I mean, he does have technical head coaching experience, but again, that's not the path that I would prefer Baltimore go down. So that was really interesting, kind of out of nowhere, for being honest, with Darren Rizzi. But the Ravens are literally leaving no stone unturned. They're making sure that that is the case. But Q, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for hopping on. Before I get you out of here, please tell people where they can find you and what you're working on, as I know it's a busy time for you, just like it's a busy time for the Ravens.
Yeah, it is. And it's all about missile training. Missiletraining.com is where you can find me, interact with me. Just had actually one of Kevin Oestreicher's fans from his podcast. Every time I get an opportunity to come on here, Kevin graces me with the opportunity to let you know about human movement and sports performance training. He came in with his 6-year-old son. He was like, look, we just want to go ahead and improve upon his movement and his foundation. I was like, sure, Corey, come on in. So we're going to get him started and get him onboarded. Another fan actually was listening, and her mom, she is a collegiate goalie. And so as a keeper, she knew that her hips were kind of off and really breaking down, and she wanted to maximize her opportunities as a collegiate athlete before her time was up in college. And so she too came in. Missiletraining.com. Anybody can get you tired, but can they get you better? Cadre Smiles, Missile Training is where you can find me. And of course, WJZ, Purple Pregame during the season and during the off season every week. Purple Connection. You'll check me out there as well. So when it comes to all things Ravens, it is the Squad Show. Squad Show, Sam and Joko, and I, and KO, chilling. I'm promising you, you'll love the live content that we share with you twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays. Then, of course, here, Kevin Oestreicher and I locked on Ravens each and every week. No compensatory picks. Unless you're a Puka Nacua, no compensatory picks.
Puka Nacua, the only compensatory pick in history. That is what we're going with here. But Q knows his stuff. He knows what he's doing. And you should go check out what he's putting together over at Missile Training and missiletraining.com. Links will be in the description down below. Be sure to check him out everywhere else as well. But Q, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for hopping on. And thank you to everybody who watched and listened today. 2 Locked On Ravens coming up. We will have the Squad Show tonight at 7:30 or around 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we'll be back here tomorrow with our regularly scheduled programming here in the morning at 6 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. So be sure to stay tuned. I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.